Hello and welcome to the tutorial on my effectors and their parameters. Hasn't been a lot of documentation about this, so I'm working to try to let you guys know what they do and how they work and what they're good for, and maybe we'll get a little bit into the tips and tricks, or maybe that'll be an add-on pack. I think I'm just going to cover just the straight ahead, you know, these are the effectors, what can they do for you. So this, we're going to start with the Effector Pack 1, because they pretty much all fit into a directory, and then we're going to go onto the Effector Pack 2, and then we'll tack on that Demoralizer at the end, which, you know, I'm sure nobody uses because it was kind of a failed attempt at something. Anyway, Effector Pack 1, and I'm just going to go down. This is the QWERTY. I'm just going to go across here and go across there and go across there. Just go straight through this. I grabbed this little file over here. I just grabbed these out of the INI. When you load effectors into a folder and you run TZT for the first time with those effectors in those positions, TZT remembers. OpenTZT will write the key map INI file into that folder, so that when you create presets, those effectors go into the same place they did the first time that the program loaded. And I think it might make those key maps when it closes. I haven't looked at the code in a long time. So if you were running it and it crashed, it might not generate those key map INIs. I can be wrong. I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead and get going. First one is the EsoticAppleShifter.dll. I did a show for a band who had the name Apple, or something Apple-like in their name. And I made this effector because they liked red and yellow. Well, there's other hues here you can play with. And basically this is just a hue restrictor. I think it kind of like funnels the whole hue spectrum down into like a little bit and just shows you that much. Something like that. So the grave to the 5 pushes the hue map in a certain direction. Grave to 5 is negative, 6 is neutral, 7 to equal is positive, and you can see it, you know, pushing the hue map a large amount, and then I'm pushing 7, it's pushing the hue map a little bit, so you can play with that. The Fader X, I forgot to talk about the fader and the Fader X. The fader is control and a number button. The Fader X is control shift and a number button. There's 2 faders for each effector slot. And so the fader is the control, the Fader X is the control shift. And that's just the lingo I use because that's how it's written in the code. Just so you know, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, the arrows. There's 4 different arrow effectors. There's the down arrows, and there's the right arrows, and there's the left arrows, and there's the up arrows. Their effectors are all basically the same. Their parameters are all basically the same. The fader is going to control the amount or the size of the arrow. So the grave is a lot of little tiny arrows. The minus and the plus and the equal sign are very big arrows. And then the Fader X, control shift, is the speed of the arrows. And something you have probably noticed about effectors is they randomize. So if you reload an effector, you're going to get different values for your fader and your fader X. And that is for the most part by design. That's how Triplet did it. And I think it worked pretty well for if you just wanted to, let's just, see what these things do. Just load the effector a bunch of times and you'll get some randomizations that should hopefully give you an idea about what the effector is good for. Okay, those are the arrow effectors. Just boom, blades right through that part. Under the A, that's how it loaded into mine anyway, we have the Esotic Blender. Most of these blend modes work on color channels. So in this composition, what we're getting is the blue and the red color channel from this player and the green color channel from this player, because it's blending the input signal with it. The fader is going to control which color channels from which video get blended, and there's some other styles in there. I know this is a lot all happening at once, but it's just how I wrote it. You can, not send me money, which you didn't anyway. The fader X doesn't do anything, so you can ignore it. Alright. Dots. The fader controls the style of dot. If you want to call them dots, I call them dots. I think they're very cute. I use this a lot, actually. It's good to pair it up with other stuff. Some craziness. The fader X is going to control your color scheme. Under the grave is going to be basically like the natural colors for the dots. The other, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is going to, I have pre-selected certain hues that I thought worked well together. And that's what's under there. D is the Esotic Edge Shifter. Basically what this does is it takes the color map and it creates a bunch of divisions from the lightest to the darkest. And you can, the fader is controlling the number of divisions, the number of cycles going from black to white. And the fader X is controlling your general overriding hue. It works better on video when there's more color information, because when you run this thing through a codec, the codec's job is to basically remove all of the data that's not necessary, so that when you decode the video it happens faster, and that kind of makes this effector's job less effective, because you've stripped out all of that underlying information that is not necessarily visible but is still there. This works really well when you have higher quality clips to work with, but it's still fun. It does what it does. F. This is the Esotic flip, which honestly I don't really know what the difference is between the vertical flip, the horizontal flip, and the Esotic flip. I kind of feel like they're all doing the same thing. But anyway, I coded this all a long time ago. So your fader is gonna, that's not a very good clip for demonstrating. Okay. The fader is going to control the style of flip. The fader X, the grave 1-2, is controlling horizontal motion, and I'm just pushing the grave and it's like, whoa, it's going crazy, and I hit the 1 and it stops. I push the 2 and it pushes it the other way, and then it stops. The 3, 4, 5 is controlling vertical direction, speed, vertical direction, speed. So now we come to our hip-to-be square effectors. We have the 16 by 20, 32 by 24, 4 by 3, and 8 by 6. And they are all loaded in G, H, Z, and X. And all of their faders are going to be the same. So we'll start with, I'm going to jump ahead to the 4 by 3 because I think it's going to be easier to see on the video. Okay, so what we've got is a grid of squares. Your fader is going to control the style of the squares, and I'm not going to go into every single one of these because they're kind of obvious. You just sort of have to get used to them and see what they're doing. But they're taking squares of the video, 1-to-1 ratio. They're not resizing anything, and then just moving them around. And you can go through all the different faders, fader values, to see what these look like. Most of these do not have any sort of speed component, but if there is a speed component, it's controlled by the fader X. So the grave 1, 2, 3, those are going to be your slower values. I think grave is actually off, and I think you push it. Well, no, that's actually sort of random. But these, yeah. But the higher up you get, the faster it flips. So you have control over the freneticism, which is totally not a word, but yeah, I said it. I normally end up kind of defaulting towards the lower end on this one, because you have to be on meth to think that's interesting. Okay. Now we're on to Exotic Mirrors 2, which is living under the C key. I love this one. It's kind of bizarre and it's weird, and it has one of those issues where the style, I'm not documenting what every key style is. You're gonna have to experiment with it and see what happens. but there's a lot going on here. Like this could probably be broken out into 8 different effectors, but it's just how I got it done. I think this is actually where the sheer bliss started, the idea of it, because I couldn't fit it into this effector, so I had to make it its own separate effector. The fader X is doing nothing in this fader. I mean, in this effector. Okay, so now we have 2 morph effectors, morph 1 and morph 2. He asked for these specifically, so I put his name on them. The morph 1 allows you to select the size of the video and its location. So the fader is the size of the video. Oh, where was that? The 0 key, fader 0, allows you to turn on and off, blending with the previous layer. Weird. Not sure why that's there. The fader X allows you to select the position. And if you select 9, the position sort of just randomly flies around the screen, like a screensaver. You can judge whether or not that's cool. That's what it does. So the Morph 2 effector, what this one does is allows you to divide the screen, and this is taking the entire image and then shrinking it a certain number of times to fit that many divisions onto the screen. And the fader controls the horizontal divisions, and the fader X controls the vertical divisions. Okay. Now, Esotic Sleepless is under N. This is also one of my favorites. There's a lot of different styles that you can choose from, but mainly what this is doing is temporal blending of information. It's taking a couple frames worth of data and just mangling it together. And yes, I came up with this at 3 in the morning when I could not sleep, which is why it's called Sleepless, and it oddly looks like a dream sequence. Maybe I'll explain some of this. So the fader 3 is negative wiping. So it's basically removing data from the picture as negative data becomes available. That may or may not only go so far. Fader 4 is doing additive adjustments to the still from the frames that are coming in. F5 does a hold on the red color channel. Fader 6 does a hold on the green color channel. Fader 7 does a hold on the blue color channel. Fader 8 is doing, that looks like something. I don't know. It's holding color channels, oddly. The Fader X is doing, like, if you've heard of a flash, I think that's what they call it, or like a whiteout or a blackout. That's kind of what you're doing here with the Fader X. This is a whiteout. That's a blackout. This is a red out, and a green out, and a blue out, and then a purple out, and an aqua out. It was late. I was just adding in whatever I wanted. And now you get to use it for free. Okay, so that is the end of the Exotic Effector Pack 1. And now we're going to move on to the Exotic Effector Pack 2. Okay, so here we are with Mr. Goat. And we are going to take a look at the Effects Pack number 2 Effectors. And I'm going to run us through all of the various effects and their parameters and what they do. And I just wrote all this down in a document, and I guess maybe I'll link to this from Vimeo, but I probably mentioned that on the first effect pack because I was doing that one first, and I'm actually recording this one first, so I'm going to edit that part out. Okay, so let's just work our way through the effects pack, and this is how they loaded. I'm just going to go through the QWERTY, just that row and that row, and just going to walk through them, and that's how they loaded in mine. I'm assuming they would load into yours in the same way because I think they load in alphabetically, and then the INI file stores their position for later, so that when you save presets that they always go in the same slots underneath the same keys in the folder. Okay, so we've got what's under W. That would be the EsoticColorizer.dll. So we have, what we have is fader. I'm going to refer to the fader, which is the first fader, which is under the control key. And I'm also going to refer to the Fader X. The Fader X is the second fader that lives under Control and Shift. I use these conventions because it's like that in the source code, and just wanted to explain that. So underneath the fader, what we have is shifting the hue map, and we're shifting it in a direction, positive and negative. What positive and negative means exactly, you just kind of have to play with it to get the feel for that. The Fader X controls the brightness of the map, the hue map. Basically what it's doing is it's generating a lookup table for every color. Okay, alright, so we'll go to the next one, color swapping, EsoticColorSwapping.dll. The fader picks which channels you want to swap. And what I'm talking about is swapping red, green, and blue. And it, each button, I don't have specifically which one is getting swapped to which other one, but that's generally what you're selecting under the fader. And the Fader X doesn't appear to have any function at all. So, okay, the Exotic horizontal flip. The fader is going to select the flip style, and it's actually the first 4 buttons in your fader are the only ones that really do anything. The other buttons do exactly the same thing. Just there's groups of 4, and they all it's a mod 4. So the grave and the 4 do the same thing, and the 2 and the 5 do the same thing, and the 2 and the 6 do the same thing. But 1, 2, 3, and 4 those are your 4 different flip styles that you can pick from. Nice. Underneath the T, I have the mask, and the fader is going to select which mask you want to use. Most of these masks look the same until you get up to 11 and 12 and 13. And these are just my standard masks that I created. And so just so you know that I'm actually selecting something, there's those numbers in there. You would want to go in and edit these masks yourself in Photoshop or Paint or GIMP or something. And you're going to want to make your own masks that say the things that you want them to say. And then the Fader X, it doesn't matter which button you push, it just flips the mask style from a positive or negative mask. And you will get a little bit of speed hiccup when you load a mask, so it's not the kind of thing you really want to be flipping on and off constantly. Probably, I'm guessing. Under Y, we have the mirror left, and there's no faders for that. It just makes a mirror down the center. Somebody asked for it. I made it. Here we have mirrors 5. And basically what we have here is some reflections. The fader and the Fader X both do the same thing in this effector. The grave 1 and 2 controls, I'm going to stop the clip for a second. The grave 1 and 2 controls the direction vertically of the reflections. 3, 4, and 5 controls the horizontal motion of the reflections. 6 and 7 toggle on and off some optional reflections. So you can just have, I think that's 2 reflections, or 3 reflections, or 4 reflections. 8, 9, and 0 force offsets, certain offsets of the reflections, and then stops your motion. Somehow I thought that was useful. Okay. Exotic mirror top. No fader values there. D, Exotic quad mirror. This is going to take this corner up here and then mirror it. No faders. Under F, we have Exotic quad mirror whole. This shrinks the whole screen down and then flips it and mirrors it. That's just weird and creepy, isn't it? Exotic random combiner.dll under G. This is actually a blend mode effector, and it will blend the input layer, player layer, with the current player layer. I like saying player layer, I think it's funny. And the fader is going to control, this is basically your blend strength between your input and your current player. As you can see. Fader X does nothing. Under H we have Exotic Repeater 2.dll. A little bit of a strange name. What it's actually doing is destroying your frame rate. It's pausing or it's basically holding a frame of the video for a certain amount of time. This is actually, I think the reason I made this was because I shot a bunch of footage when I was walking around with a camera, and it was impossible to watch, but it actually made a pretty decent slideshow if you just pause frames every now and then. So that's kind of where this came from. The grave and the one, I think, just select the next frame. So if you want to tap it out like this, you could totally do that. It's a goat's mouth. Okay, I'm cracking myself up. So 2 onward is going to be a certain kind of, okay, we're just pausing for a certain length of time, and the length of time gets greater the farther up the numbers you go. If you don't want to have to tap it, your fingers get tired. So under Z, this is EsoticShiftEasy.dll. This is actually just adding value to the pixel data, which may not really explain what it's doing, but that is what it's doing. It's trying to do a kind of pixel information shifting, but very efficiently, very quickly. Your grave to 5 is going to be speed in the negative direction. 6 is going to be paused. And 7 in the other way is going to be speed in the positive direction. So normally what I do with this one is I'll get it to a certain place and then I'll pause it. And I'll go, oh, I went too far. I'm going to back it up. And then I'm going to pause it. Say there. And it's trying to do hue shifting without doing all the heavy lifting of actual hue shifting, because that's normally computationally expensive. X is the Esotic temporal diff, and what that's doing is just showing you the difference between the frames. So it holds on to the last frame, compares it to the current frame, and then only shows you the visual data, the pixel data that's different. And I don't think the fader actually does anything, but it doesn't look like it's doing anything. I thought that it was allowing you to select the number of frames to wait before you compared. But I don't know, I don't see any difference between the gray, like the 1 and the 9 and the 0, it just all looks the same. Okay. Exotic V-flip. That's a vertical flip, and it allows you to, the grade 1, 2, 3 allows you to pick the slip style. Exotic watermark. This is actually a little bit special. It might have confused a lot of people. Clear that guy. And let me clear that guy. So we have this effector at the very end of the chain. If you load the watermark into that effector slot, it will grab the watermark mask from the masks folder. We covered that in the effectors tutorial, and it will load that mask in and mask the input value. So let's say you're making a demo reel and you want your graphic on the demo reel. This is an easy way to accomplish that. And the fader allows you to select which image you want to use to mask with, to watermark. your video. This is the EsoticWatermark.dll, and it only really works in the last effector slot because that's how Morph wanted it to work. I said, okay, whatever. Alright, Exotic Wiggle Shifter. This is a hue adjuster made for a very specific event that we used to do, where all the colors were supposed to be wintry and white and blue and purple. And so that's kind of what you got here, although there's some aqua sneaking in. The fader, let me pause that guy, let me pick this one. The fader is hue shifting, and the grave to 5 is shifting a certain amount in the negative direction. The 7 to minus is shifting a certain amount in the positive direction, and the 6 is not shifting anything at all. The fader X is allowing us to select a specific amount of hue shift. And you can just play with that to get the idea. Under the N button, I have sheer bliss.dll. Somehow I forgot to put my name at the beginning of that file. And what this one is doing, well, you can see what it's doing. What the fader does is allows you to select horizontal divisions. Anywhere you can have no horizontal divisions all the way up to a bunch of horizontal divisions. And then your fader X is going to allow you to select the vertical divisions. Turn horizontal divisions off, you can see that. Maybe a little bit. That's good. Can you see the divisions? Okay, so that's the Effector Pack 2 parameters. Why don't we just tack on the Demoralizer to this one, because there's only one effector in the third effector pack, because I haven't really finished it or continued working on it. So this is the Demoralizer, and basically what the Demoralizer is supposed to be doing is allowing you to destroy your video. I kind of wanted to make something that was like a have you seen motion JPEG or MPEG artifacting, and not just artifacting, I mean corruption. I was trying to make something look like MPEG corruption, and I didn't do very well. But this is what came out. It's the Demoralizer. And this is actually a little bit like the free frame effectors in the sense that your fader X is going to be selecting the parameter you're adjusting, and then the fader controls actually mangling it, adjusting the values. So anyway, that's that. Thank you for watching the Exotic Effector Pack tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.